Hi everyone, and welcome to REACHLaw Talks. My name is Steve George, and I'm speaking today as a Senior Advisor and Director of REACHLaw UK. I have a long background in the aerospace industry, in particular in supply chain and engineering management. I led chemical regulation cross-functionally across a diverse multinational for over 10 years and led on the subject for the EU aerospace and defence industry. For transparency, I am also a Senior Advisor to Ruud Pedersen Public Affairs in Brussels, supporting their Chemicals, Environment, Sustainability and Circular Economy cluster. This video is in two parts and seeks to provide a high-level overview of how chemical risk is managed in the EU, both looking at the obligations of industry and the mechanisms the authorities have in both understanding and reducing risk from chemicals. Part 1 looks at the basic normal system of how producers and users of chemicals interact. This forms the context and landscape for Part 2, in which I explore what interventions can be made by authorities to reduce risk further. Where I refer to the EU, I also mean by extension to European Economic Area countries such as Norway. First, some quick definitions. Everything around us is made of substances, mixtures, and articles. Simply, a chemical substance can be chemically transformed into another substance, combined by a formulator into a mixture like a paint or an alloy, or shaped into an article. Articles can be assembled into complex objects. It is important to understand the legal definitions to understand your legal obligations. Any company that places a substance or mixture on the EU market, whether as a manufacturer, formulator, or importer, must classify the chemical product. The European Chemicals Agency, or ECHA, is notified of that classification either through a registration of the substance in accordance with the REACH regulation, or an Article 40 notification in accordance with the CLP regulation. Registration is required for any substance produced over 1 tonne per year. A producer or formulator of a substance or mixture must develop evidence of the substance hazard and the necessary risk control measures to control it based on how the substance is known to be used downstream. This is captured in the safety data sheet and associated exposure scenarios. The hazard classification is the basis for how the substance or the mixture is labelled, packaged, safely transported, and it also affects use, disposal, and management as waste. Where there are concerns or inconsistency, the authorities may step in to force a harmonised classification. A harmonised classification proposal is made by the ECHA's Risk Assessment Committee after review of a dossier in a format defined by REACH Annex 15. The European Commission decides the harmonised classification through a delegated act after consultation with the so-called Caracal Committee of Competent Authorities. A harmonised classification has consequences through forced changes to registration, safety data sheets, and risk management measures. It may also result in automatic restrictions, for example, for Category 1 carcinogens in retail products. Downstream users of chemicals, whether they are formulators of mixtures or end users, have a right to receive safety data sheets free of charge in their own national language. Downstream users must manage risks taking into account the information received in the safety data sheet. Downstream users have a right but not the obligation to make their uses known to upstream registrants so that their uses are covered by exposure scenarios provided. Exposure scenarios are required where the upstream producer is obliged to produce a chemical safety report, in particular where the registered volume is above 10 tonnes per year. Where exposure scenarios are included in safety data sheets, they are often referred to as extended safety data sheets. Where downstream users receive such exposure scenarios, they are obliged to come into line with the specific requirements of a relevant exposure scenario or to do their own chemical safety report, perhaps due to the use being confidential, and they must notify ECHA of this. Or they must notify ECHA that a low-use exemption is claimed for use under 1 tonne per year, or they must cease use entirely. A 12-month compliance timescale starts at the moment such an extended safety datasheet is received. Other communication obligations exist in REACH and related legislation for downstream users, in particular to report unsafe uses, to provide information to workers, to notify import of substances of very high concern or SVHCs in articles to ECHA where imported or produced greater than 1 tonne per year in aggregate. Suppliers of articles or complex objects containing them must also declare SVHCs to customers in accordance with Article 33 of REACH and also provide that information to ECHA for the substances of concern in products, or SKIP, database, which is intended to help recyclers and waste processors. This system of rights and obligations around registration, classification, extended safety datasheets and downstream user obligations are the primary means to manage chemical risks in the EU and to provide the authorities with information on which to base additional risk management actions where necessary. What interventions the EU authorities can take and the consequences of these will be the subject of Part 2. Stay tuned, the second part of my 2-part series on EU chemical risk management will be published soon on REACHLaw Talks. Thank you very much for your attention and do not hesitate to contact us for support and to remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you.